Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Ever Revenge, where we dive into tales of heartbreak, redemption, and that sweet sting of getting even, with a twist of love that hits you right in the feels. If you're new here, oh boy, you're in for a treat. We're inching closer to that magical 1K subscriber milestone. Your likes, shares, and subscribes are the heartbeat keeping these stories alive. So, if this one's got you hooked already, smash that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and let's make it happen together. And hey, promise me you'll watch this full video. It's a journey worth every second. Trust me, you won't want to miss the heart-melting twist at the end. Grab your cozy blanket, dim the lights, and let's step into tonight's story. My wife betrayed me at a charity gala, only to realize she was playing with the wrong heart. Settle in. Here we go. The chandelier light danced like 1,000 fireflies trapped in crystal, casting a golden haze over the grand ballroom of the evergreen charity gala. It was one of those nights where the air hummed with whispered deals and clinking champagne flutes, all in the name of saving the world, or at least pretending to. I stood there in my tailored black tux, feeling like an imposter among the elite donors and socialites, my hand absently adjusting the silk tie Elena had knotted for me that morning. 5 years of marriage, and she still made me feel like the luckiest man alive. Or at least, that's what I told myself as I scanned the room for her familiar laugh. We'd met in a coffee shop downpour, the kind that soaks you to the bone and forces strangers into shared shelter. I was 28, buried in blueprints for my architecture firm, nursing a lukewarm latte. She burst in, drenched red dress clinging like a second skin, her dark curls plastered to her cheeks, and a smile that could outshine the storm outside. "Mind if I steal your napkin?" she'd asked, dabbing at her face with zero apology. I handed it over without a word, mesmerized by the way her hazel eyes sparkled with mischief. By the time the rain stopped, we'd talked for hours. About her dreams of curating art exhibits that changed lives, my obsession with buildings that told stories. 6 months later, under that same coffee shop awning, I proposed with a ring I'd sketched myself. Simple, imperfect like us. Our life together was a canvas of stolen sunsets and midnight confessions. Elena had this way of making the ordinary epic. Picnics in the park where she'd unpack gourmet cheeses and we'd debate whether Van Gogh's swirls captured chaos or calm. I'd surprise her with sketches of our future home. A cozy loft with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, walls lined with her paintings. We fought, sure, like any couple. But our makeups, they were poetry. She'd trace my jawline with her fingertips, whispering, "You're my anchor, Alex. Don't ever forget that." And I wouldn't. God, I wouldn't. Lately, though, the firm had swallowed me whole. Deadlines for the new eco-resort project meant 18-hour days, forgotten anniversaries, and Elena's eyes dimming just a fraction each time I stumbled home past midnight. "It's temporary," I'd say, pulling her close, inhaling the lavender of her skin. "This success, it's for us." She'd nod, but I saw the fracture lines forming, the way she'd linger over her phone, scrolling through feeds of glamorous lives, or stare out our apartment window like she was searching for something I'd buried under blueprints. The gala was her idea. A chance to mingle with art patrons who could fund her next exhibit. "Come with me," she'd pleaded that week, her voice soft over breakfast. "It'll be fun. We can dance like we did at our wedding." I promised I'd be there, slipping away from a late meeting just in time. But as I arrived, shaking hands with silver-haired philanthropists, my phone buzzed with an urgent call from the site foreman. "Just 10 minutes," I mouthed to her across the room, where she stood radiant in emerald silk, her necklace, a delicate silver chain I'd designed, catching the light like a promise. When I returned, the room had tilted on its axis. There she was, in a shadowed alcove near the auction tables, her hand on his arm. Marcus Hale. Tall, chiseled, with that predatory grin and a family fortune built on old oil money. They'd dated briefly before me, back in her wild college days. A fling she'd laughed off as youthful folly. But now, his fingers grazed her waist, too low, too familiar. She leaned in, her lips brushing his ear as she said something that made him chuckle, deep and throaty. The world narrowed to that point of contact, a betrayal sharper than shattered glass. My chest caved, breath ragged, as if someone had yanked the air from the room. 5 years. Vows. Laughter in the dark. All crumbling under the weight of his touch. I didn't confront them. Not there. Not with cameras flashing and violins swelling like a cruel soundtrack. Instead, I slipped out into the velvet night, the cool October air slapping my face like a wake-up call. Hailed a cab, stared at the city lights blurring past, each one a memory fracturing. Her in our kitchen, flour dusted from baking scones, us tangled in sheets, whispering futures, the way she'd cry at sad movies, burying her face in my shoulder. Betrayal isn't just the act. It's the echo, the hollow space where trust used to live. By the time I reached our apartment, rage had curdled into something worse. Grief. I packed a bag, left a note on the marble counter. I saw, "We're done," and checked into a sterile hotel room downtown, the kind with thin walls and no soul. The next morning my phone exploded. Texts, voicemails, her name lighting up the screen like a flare in the dark. I ignored them, burying myself in work, but the pain was a living thing, gnawing at my ribs. Our friends circled like vultures, concerned calls from her sister, awkward silences from mine. "What happened?" they'd ask. I'd choke out, "Gala. Marcus." And the pity in their voices would twist the knife deeper. It was 3 days later, under a relentless gray sky, that she found me. I'd taken refuge in the old park where we'd had our first real date. Benches worn smooth by time, leaves crunching underfoot like brittle hearts. She appeared like a ghost, coat pulled tight against the wind, eyes red-rimmed and shadowed. "Alex," she breathed, voice cracking like thin ice. I stood, fists clenched, ready for the excuses. But she didn't offer any. Instead, she sank onto the bench, pulling a crumpled photo from her pocket. An old Polaroid of us, grinning like idiots at that coffee shop, rain still beating on our lashes. "I was an idiot," she started, tears carving paths down her cheeks. "You were gone so much. Swallowed by the firm, the projects. I felt invisible, Alex. Like I was fading into the wallpaper of our life." Her words hung heavy, each one a confession I dreaded but somehow needed. "Marcus texted me weeks ago. Out of nowhere. Said he missed the spark we had. I didn't respond at first, but then, God, I was so angry at you, at us. I thought if I made you jealous, saw that fire in your eyes again, the way you used to look at me like I was your whole world, maybe we'd wake up. It was stupid, cruel. Game. I told him to meet me at the gala to play along, flirt just enough to hurt you into noticing me." I stared, the pieces slotting together like a puzzle I'd refused to solve. Not an affair. A desperate ploy born of neglect. Her hand reached for mine, trembling. "But when I saw you across the room, slipping away for that call, I realized what I'd done. He wasn't the spark, Alex. He was smoke, empty, acrid. You're the fire. The one that warms, that builds, that lasts." Sobs shook her now, raw and unfiltered, and something in me fractured open. I dropped to my knees in the damp grass, pulling her into my arms, her tears soaking my shirt like the rain that first day. "I'm sorry," she whispered into my neck, over and over, a mantra of regret. "I played with the wrong heart. Yours was never a game to me. It was my home." We stayed like that until dusk painted the sky in bruised purples, words tumbling out in a flood we'd dammed too long. I admitted my blindness, the way ambition had blinded me to her quiet pleas, the post-it notes on my desk, "Miss your laugh," the untouched dinners cooling on the stove. "I thought success would bring us closer," I murmured, my thumb brushing her tear-streaked cheek. "But it just built walls." She cupped my face, her touch a lifeline. "Then let's tear them down. Together. No more games. Just us." That night we went home. Not to the apartment, but to the bones of our future. I drove us to the construction site of the eco-resort, floodlights casting long shadows over half-raised beams. Hand in hand, we wandered the skeleton of what could be. Her head on my shoulder as I sketched dreams in the dust. A gallery wing for her art, a rooftop garden for our picnics. Under the stars, I slipped the ring back on her finger. Not with words, but with a kiss that tasted of salt and second chances. Slow, deep, like rediscovering a language we'd almost forgotten. Her body melted into mine, hands threading through my hair, and in that unfinished space we rebuilt. Not perfect but real, scarred, stronger, alive. Months later, at the opening of her exhibit, Hearts in the Rough, the Gala's shadow felt like a distant dream. She stood beside me in a gown the color of new dawn, her hand in mine as patrons murmured over canvases born of our pain, swirling reds of betrayal fading into golds of grace. Marcus sent a card, congratulations, no more, but it went straight to the trash. We'd learned. Love isn't a game you win. It's the quiet choice every day to choose the right heart. Ours beating as one.